This is the iPhone X. It was released back in 2017, which is now almost 7 years old. So it's been a very long time since this phone has come out. But we're going to be checking out whether this holds up in 2024, almost 7 years later. Starting with the design, we got an all aluminum build on the sides and a glass front as well as a glass back. This may be slightly a hot take, but I prefer the curved edges of the iPhone X compared to the newer iPhone 14 and 15 and 16 and so on series that we're probably going to have of that boxy edge design. I personally don't like that as much. I think that the iPhone X feels really good the palm of your hand, and overall it's also a pretty compact phone as well at only 5.8 inches, and that makes it for being one of the most compact phones of 2024 that you'll probably see people using. Let's talk about that panel. We've gotten a 5.8 inch OLED panel which has a pixel of 1125 by 2046, which makes it a very high Retina HD display. The colors are very vivid. I like overall the display. It does feel a bit old because of that notch, but it's really not a deal breaker at all. The bezels are also very thin, and the brightness gets pretty bright. Not as bright, clearly, as some of the newer, let's just say 14, 15, etc. series, but it is still relatively bright, at least compared to when this was released. And during 2017, the smartphones were bright, but the iPhone X was truly the brightest. To sum the display up, this is a very good panel, and I overall like basically everything about it. Now time to talk about something that a lot of people don't particularly like about the iPhone X now, and that is the iPhone X's performance. A lot of people have stated that it is slow, that it's buggy, and overall doesn't really work too well now in 2024. And from my previous testing, I will say that that is kind of the case. There are many times where there are plenty of bugs in the software, and also with the Apple A11 chip that we have in here, sure, it is still somewhat speedy, and it's definitely more speedy than some phones like the iPhone 6 at its time or something like the iPhone 4S, that's for sure. The iPhone X is pretty slow now in 2024, so don't expect blazing performance. However, that doesn't mean you can't run like any game or run any app or anything like that. That's definitely not the case. You can easily play 3D titles such as Call of Duty Mobile, just regular mobile, not Warzone, but you can also play just simple 2D games. You can also play car racing games like Asphalt 8 or Asphalt Nitro, which is a simpler version of the heavier intensive Asphalt 8 and 9 games, and generally it will perform pretty well with that. The UI performance, sometimes with software, there will be bugs and things like that, but I'm not saying it is undoable to use this phone or anything like that. You can definitely use this on a day-to-day basis, and watching stuff like YouTube or anything like that, it will do totally fine, and as well as Netflix. So especially with that pretty great display, it's a great viewing experience with that, and you can generally do the highest settings, everything like that. And yeah, there's not too much wrong in terms of the gaming or video watching performance. I'm more just talking about bugs and just the UI performance overall, as well as the general lack of RAM. 3 gigabytes of RAM really isn't that much in 2024. Now let's talk about the cameras, and we've got dual 12 megapixel cameras on the back, as well as a 12 megapixel camera on the front, and generally these will perform pretty okay. Just think about something like an iPhone XR or an XS, very similar performance. You got a 2x telephoto camera, and then obviously the main camera, and like I said, they're both 12 megapixels, and they, like I said, will perform pretty well in good lighting. Now, in nighttime, it's kind of a different story. They will perform not great because there's no dedicated night mode or anything like that. That did not come until the iPhone 11 Pro. But what I will say is that HDR is pretty good. There's no real problems with much of the photo quality or the video quality. The video quality is still just as good as it always has been for iPhones. Always been really impressed with the video quality on iPhones. And yeah, there's not too many complaints about the back cameras. Finally, let's talk about battery life as well as my final verdict. So, in terms of battery life, we got a okay battery life that lasts around 3 to 4 hours. So it's definitely worse than the newer iPhones. Even like compared to mini iPhones, it won't perform that well. But what I will say, for such an old phone that's 7 years old, as long as you find it in pretty good condition in terms of the battery, it won't be absolutely horrendous, and you will generally be able to get through a day of light use, but not heavy use. So if you're playing a lot of 3D games and things like that, then it will definitely be a lot harder to get through the day. But generally, for some light users watching some YouTube, etc., it will be alright. Finally, let's now talk about the final verdict. And here's what I'll say about the iPhone X. I probably wouldn't recommend you buy it, but it is something interesting to look back on. If you're interested in putting in your collection or something like that, or just using it without service, maybe you're giving it to a kid or something like that, then maybe I would recommend it for those certain people. However, for all others, I'd probably stay away from this phone. And because of its somewhat short battery life, as well as its just mediocre performance in 2024, I generally would not recommend this phone. Either way though, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. My name is Adam, and I'll see you in the next one.